This is our news, the weekend edition. And on the broadcast tonight, another COVID-19 case is confirmed. Plus, 7 people missing after a Haitian vessel is destroyed by fire off the coast of Long Island. And later on, we tell you about a local group that's supporting the Frontline.
Our news is brought to you by Alive.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Andrew Knowles, and thanks so much for joining us. The number of COVID-19 cases shot up by 1 to 83 today after New Providence woman became the latest to be diagnosed with the virus. The newly confirmed case is 49 years old and at home in isolation. Just yesterday, a 25-year-old woman from New Providence tested positive for the COVID-19. She is in hospital. There are now 47 active cases, 9 of whom are hospitalized. 25 people have recovered, while 11 have died. The search is on for 7 people after the boat they were on caught fire off the coast of Long Island on Thursday. 2 people who were on board the vessel were discovered on shore Friday morning. Long Island MP Adrian Gibson says 9 people were reportedly on board when the incident happened, 6 men and 3 women. 2 of the passengers are reportedly Bahamian and the others Haitian. Now we understand the 80-foot vessel, the MV Fish Farmer, was en route to Haiti after departing from Potter's Key Dock on Monday. Gibson says the captain was given permission to make the return trip to Haiti. On Wednesday, the Defense Force was alerted to a medical emergency on board the Haitian freighter as one of the female passengers was reportedly ill and later died. Now, according to those 2 survivors, an explosion in the engine room caused the fire on the boat. According to Gibson, the men claimed they were separated from the other 6 passengers while trying to get to shore. The deceased woman was left on board the vessel. The men stated they swam 8 to 10 miles. Meantime, the Defense Force says they received information about a fire on board a vessel 10 miles off the eastern shoreline of Salt Pond. Local police and residents utilizing jet skis responded but were unable to assist due to the intensity of the flames on the vessel. Rescue efforts by the Defense Force and U.S. Coast Guard were also hindered by inclement weather. Meantime, the island's MP said medical professionals have carried out a field check and that the men are presently not exhibiting any signs of COVID-19. Well, as government looks to reopen the country, it may be a while before we know about school reopenings. Yet, senior education officials maintain they will be ready whenever the school bell rings. Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis this week revealed plans for a phased reopening. Under Phase 3, limited educational operations like national examinations will be allowed. The reopening of school is expected in Phase 5.
So, definitively, when Phase 3 comes, we would be in a position to deal with national exams. When Phase 5 comes, we'd be able to open up schools again.
But Education Director Marcellus Taylor maintains the anticipated dates of the phases are dependent on COVID-19 responses. He was a panelist on the Ministry of Health's virtual town hall meeting on the impact of COVID-19 on the children just last evening. In response to the school closures, the Ministry of Education launched its virtual learning portal, which has risen in user numbers in recent weeks.
We had about 11,000 students when we started. But now, as week by week has transpired, we have more and more students, and I think now we have about 41,000 or so students registered. On a daily basis, 16, 17,000 students go on. And so people even ask about that disparity in numbers. But some of it is that students could go on at any time.
With some 40,000+ students utilizing the learning portal at various times and others engaged in different forms of learning, measuring a student's engagement may be difficult, but Taylor says they're developing a stronger learning management platform.
So that every time a student logs on, we know how much time they've spent on, which subjects they've gone to look at, and their teacher can use that to support them in ensuring that, well, I noticed that you didn't go to your math class. Why didn't you go to your math class? Mm-hmm. Okay, you need to make sure you make it in your math. Right. And so we're shortly going to have a new platform that is going to roll out that will give us the ability to do that. As for the other things that are going on, we're in the process of collecting that information. But as we build this platform, we hope to fold all of those other activities into what we're doing on the centralized platform so that we can be able to account and also make sure that we're supporting the children in the best ways that we can.
In the absence of the regular classroom structure, the role of parents becomes more critical. And while teachers are there to provide support, the director says they can only do so much.
We could offer you the support, we could provide the instruction, we could do all those things, but we cannot make your children do the work. We cannot be there to ensure that at 11 o'clock when their science class comes on that they're there. That is something that you would have to do.
Attorney Wayne Monroe QC is slamming government's rental assistance program. Monroe questioned what assistance is being offered.
What assistance are they offering? Are they offering to pay anything for the tenant? Are they offering to give the landlord any tax breaks? If they're not offering to do any of those things, they're not giving any assistance whatsoever.
The long-awaited rental assistance program came at a time when scores of Bahamians are struggling to make ends meet due to the adverse effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. According to the Prime Minister, the program allowed for persons impacted by COVID-19 to have 40% of their rent deferred for 3 months. He added that there should be no evictions until the end of June. He stressed, though, the assistance is limited to residential rentals only and individuals whose employment or income have been affected by the pandemic. However, Monroe explained that the emergency powers orders does not give the Prime Minister the authority to interfere with private contracts.
His augmented powers are limited to those given by the emergency powers regulation, which does not give him power to interfere with private contracts generally. It gives him powers to requisition a building if it's needed. So let's say they need a quarantine facility, they could requisition Malia, they could requisition Neticas, they could requisition Colony Club. But when they finish with it, they have to pay the owner.
Monroe gave these suggestions to possibly stop evictions.
So he could requisition all rental properties and stop evictions that way, but then he would have to pay the landlord. I don't think the landlords would mind that. He could say to a landlord, you have real property tax, we will write off your real property tax for however long that you give credit to your tenant. So if you give credit to your tenant, let us agree how much of your real property tax you will not pay.
We'll still ahead tonight. A senior citizen's home is in need of your help. And later, hashtag lunchbag donates. Those stories coming up. Next tonight, a nursing home taking care of 30 elderly people with special needs is asking for your help as the task of taking care of those susceptible to the COVID-19 virus is becoming a strain. Giorgio Bain reports.
We need some help. Help.
As emergency measures have been extended, a local nursing home is now struggling to make ends meet. With food and medical supplies rationing, they say that they're in need of help desperately. The nursing home is no longer allowing outside visitors, according to Dr. Kendall Capron, who said while the move was to protect the health of their residents, it has also cut down on assistance from family members.
We started to run short of disinfect. We started running short of food. We have no money to play some of this stuff. But we're trying hard to keep the place sanitized and a lot of disinfect. We lose a lot of disinfect and bleach and stuff
It is also taking a toll on caretakers who ensure that the residents are staying safe, according to Supervisor Teresa Bastian.
It's trying for them to keep on their masks because they feel like they're being smothered. But we still have to make them use it because it's for their own safety.
Caretakers have made a major sacrifice. The nursing home has now become their home.
We was trying to keep them apart, but they're going to still mingle. That's why we have takers that don't go home. They stay in so they wouldn't have to bring anything into the home to them. So they're living in until this whole academic is over.
Dr. Capron appealed to anyone who can assist to lend a helping hand.
If you bring us 1 can of corned beef, 1 can of milk, we'll take you for it. But remember, we didn't have that 1 can of corned beef, and we didn't have that 1 can of milk. So we really need some help. We really, 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 really need some help.
Reporting for our News, I'm Georgie Bain.
With the Lead Institute forced to shut its doors and cancel in-person classes and training, CEO of the National Lead Institute, Troy Clark, says they've had to adapt to a new normal.
Since COVID-19, we realized that our engagement with our clientele had to change. As a result of that, we have decided to use the Zoom platform to actually reach not only our clients, but the general population.
One of their focuses in recent weeks has been mental health. The COVID-19 pandemic has forced many people to take a deeper look at mental health issues. As experts say, outbreak can add more stress to everyday life. Clark said they have decided to tackle the issue using the internet, and so far the response has been good.
There's no real focus given to mental health, and it's not mental illness, but mental health during COVID-19. And a lot of persons are actually experiencing anxiety, depression, grief, and even some persons are experiencing what they call substance use on a higher scale than normal. And so as a result of that, we decided to put on what we call a 5-session series for 2 hours every Saturday from 1 to 3 on our Zoom platform.
When our news, the weekend edition comes back from the break. A Bahamian student shares how she's coping with being away from home amid the COVID-19 pandemic. So stay with us. Welcome back to our news, the weekend edition. A Bahamian student in the United States says the worst part of going through the pandemic away from home is the constant worry for her family. She sat down with our Jillian Gray and explains how she's coping and helping her family from a distance.
Brittany Bowles, who is a senior at Texas Southern University, says it's difficult going through a pandemic away from her family. On a daily basis, she worries about her parents and brother in the Bahamas, especially her mother, who is a registered nurse at Doctors Hospital.
Every time she says she's going to work, my heart is like, I just have to always pray and manifest and cover her, because I know, I don't know if there's any cases that's in Doctors Hospital. She probably won't tell me even if, but I just try to just keep her covered in prayers.
Over 200 health professionals were quarantined after being exposed to the COVID-19 pandemic. Bowles said while her family is constantly worried about her, she is more so concerned for their safety. She said she sent several protective products home to ensure her family is safe.
What I did was just made her a bunch of N95 masks. I looked on YouTube on how to make it, and I made like about 20, and I shipped it off to her. I didn't even care about the price of shipping it. I just knew she needed it. When she called me and she's in somewhere where she could probably get masks, like I knew it was serious.
Bowles, who is studying clinical laboratory science, said she decided to stay in Texas and shelter in place as she was frightened by the sheer aggressiveness of the disease and didn't want to chance the trip home.
Once the disease has like made itself known and the school started to put all the classes online and they was like, don't come in, don't come on campus. I was like, okay, so maybe I should go home. But then most of the cases was starting from the airports. So I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna go home anymore. I think I'm gonna just stay and just wait it out.
The city of Houston is on lockdown, and Bowles said she only makes trips to the store once every 2 weeks. When the pandemic has passed, Bowles said she is looking forward to coming home. Reporting for Our News, I'm Jillian Gray.
With food, drinks, and desserts in tow, volunteers from the #LunchBag group made sure quite a few healthcare workers felt their love and appreciation this week. Every month, #LunchBag distributes food to needy communities. It's strictly a volunteer effort where groups come together to prepare and distribute meals. With so many restrictions due to social distancing and stay-at-home orders, the group was determined to keep up the goodwill. As they were delivering to healthcare workers at the Princess Margaret Hospital, the Our News team spoke with founder Lincoln Deal, who said despite the challenges, they were able to do some good while giving some small entrepreneurs some needed business.
As a volunteer group, we're unable to kind of assemble together and package foods and distribute it, but we still wanted to find a meaningful way to give back. And so we assembled a core group of our volunteer system, and we decided collectively that we would give back to those who have been on the front line fighting the COVID-19 pandemic. And of course, our doctors, our nurses, and all of the healthcare staff, they've been critical in this fight, as well as the media. And so today we all gathered and we went to different places in the health sector to give back and offer them love and appreciation for all of they've been doing. The second part of this is to encourage local entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship is going to be a big factor, and there's been a lot of small businesses that have suffered during this COVID-19 pandemic. And so this was also an opportunity to engage them, to give them an opportunity to get their businesses back and running and also find a way to give back. And so those are some of the important factors.
The pizzas were accompanied by lemonade from Quenchers and homemade cookies from Cuplicious. Owner of Cuplicious, Brenique Gibson, a former Miss World Bahamas, saw it as an opportunity to continue a platform at a critical time.
As a beauty ambassador, we were heavily engaged with community service work, and so I believe that it's extremely important that we continue the work that we started because the work is still needed. And at a time like this, as we are currently fighting this COVID-19 pandemic globally, we need all hands on deck. We need everyone on board. Well, I definitely understand what entrepreneurs like myself are currently going through. It's a very difficult time for us, and that's why I had appreciated the initiative that Mr. Deal told us about, whereby they were trying to engage small business owners like myself. So I'm very grateful for the opportunity, and I hope that more citizens will continue to patronize local businesses because we can use their assistance.
Up next, we take a trip down memory lane with the country's first track and field Olympic medalist. So stay with us. A former Olympic medalist and sports Hall of Famer discusses the future of sports after the coronavirus. He spoke with our Marcellus Hall.
Well, just the other day we were talking with track and field legend Frank Rutherford. He had a lot to say about his winning that first medal for the Bahamas back in 1992 and some other things. Well, that discussion went on for quite a while. Frank, with a lot of different things that he had to say, in regards to sports and, of course, the country. Here's more.
You know, from a kid, my parents always instilled the confidence in me that, son, anything you want to do, you put your mind to, you work hard toward it, you give God the thanks and praise, and stay humble, and great things would happen. Your time will come. But my time came then, Marcellus, and that's my contribution, you know, or the beginning of my contribution.
Since then, you've moved on. You've done a number of things to open doors for other Bahamians besides outside of, because with the Frank Rutherford Foundation, you've been able to help a lot of Bahamians to get their foot in the door, so to speak. Talk about the idea behind that, the premise behind that.
It was always said to me that, look, you have to have the heart to help people. And if you ever successful enough to reach where you really want to go and you get there, the most important thing for you to do is to give back. You know, reach down and pull somebody else up. That's always been on my heart, because my family actually is that type of family. We've always had family members come from the family islands. My grandparents always had food they was given to neighbors and stuff. So I grew up around, just talking to my mother the other day about these things, I grew up around seeing that kind of spirit. You know, my family have that kind of giving back spirit. And me starting the Frank Rutherford Foundation, you know, it was like a natural thing. It's like, you know, I mean, why wouldn't I? I mean, you know, I have coaches here in the U.S. asking me every single day during my time, even as an athlete, man, do you know any other athlete that we could go in the Bahamas and recruit and bring on our track team? Do you know any other athlete that plays basketball? Do you know any, man, can you help us to get da-da-da-da? So it's a natural fit. Then, you know, being part of the NBA with the Hakeem Olajuwon, you know, the scouts always say to me that, but Frank, man, we go and see these college games, and we see the most athletic guy on the team. He only gets in the game when the team is being blown out. Then when you see this guy jump, he hitting his head on the rim. He's a Bahamian kid, but he have no skills. Why don't you bring those kids over and put them in high school early or middle school so they can learn to have some skill with that athleticism? So the first set of kids, you know, I brought was my nephews, my cousins, Devad, Devon, Darling, and of course, you know, I brought Dennis here first to run track, and you know what the history is with those guys. You know, Devad, 10 years in the NFL. Dennis Darling, you know, he's a 3-time Olympian like his older cousin, and the list goes on with you know, to a kid that you introduced me to, DeAndre Ayton, you know, a kid that we bought after you called me 2 weeks later. He was here, and you know, it opened doors and exposed him and his mother and his family. Look where he is today, the first pick, 2018 draft, you know, and all in between. It's been hundreds of kids that I've helped through our foundation. I've gotten a scholarship in football, basketball, and gotten their college education.
These times, COVID-19 has really changed the entire world, the dynamic of the entire world. People are approaching life differently based on the reality of what is. One of the biggest things that really happened was, you know, the Olympics, which, you know, other than war, has never been postponed before. You know, so what was your thoughts as a former Olympian? What was your thoughts when you heard that?
You know, Marcellus, my thought was good that they did it, because you remember for a while it was this contention that it was still on, you know, and then as this thing ramped up, this COVID-19 momentum ramped up, then they at the last minute say, hey, let's go ahead and let's postpone, and now it's canceled. And there was early talks about it being canceled for the next 2 years, and I thought I was like, no, that I think they should just have the Olympics next year, and rather than the next 2 years, because the athletes have been getting ready and they are almost in prime shape now. So, you know, I was like, 2 years would be too long, you know what I mean? And so make it 2021. And so I thought it was a good idea for them to, you know, to postpone it until then. And hopefully, Marcellus, just hopefully, it doesn't have to be canceled in 2021.
And again, that's more with track legend Frank Rutherford. For our news, I'm Marcellus Hall. The weather is next.
And that's going to do it for us on a Saturday night. I'm Andrew Knowles. For all of us here at Our News, thank you for watching. Let's remember to be safe and look out for each other. Have a good night.